How it all began. Pleiadium Pleiadium Contact Reports, Volume 1, Introduction. On the 3rd of February, 1941, when I had just turned 4, I lived in Niederflachs, 1253, a short distance from the town of Bülach/ZH, which was surrounded by the Eschenmoser and Bruder mountains as well as by wide forests and extensive meadows and fields. Even then I felt the urge to learn a lot and to become knowledgeable and wise, as well as modest, kind and worthy of life. Through their education of me, mother and father guided me in this direction. However, Pastor Rudolf Zimmermann, the minister of the Reformed Church of the municipality of Bülach, likewise played a weighty role, because in him, quite especially, I saw the expression of knowledge and wisdom as well as the virtue of modesty, but also his kindness and appreciation in regard to human beings and life. These conditions were the constant motivation for me to contemplate all those values and to develop myself in that direction, which also meant for me, however, that, in spite of my young age, I had to learn a lot and that I actually was not averse to learning. Nevertheless, I did not agree completely with all that which I had to learn, and the things which were explained and made known to me. Thus, from a very early age, I learnt to maintain my own trains of thought in a controlled manner, to draw my own conclusions and to make my own decisions. Through this, I also learnt to separate the wheat from the chaff and to look for the truth where it is basically to be found, namely, in one's own inner and innermost, as well as in one's own intellect, in one's own reason, one's own thoughts, contemplations and feelings. From this, developed the recognition and application of self-responsibility and the recognition and fulfilment of responsibility in regard to fellow human beings, the worlds of plants and animals, and in regard to life and the creational laws and recommendations. Thus I recognized very soon, and before I had even turned 5, that there was very much more to life than that with which human beings occupy themselves in everyday existence with work, which in those days, as a rule, also encroached on one's free time. Thus, according to my cognition, however, there was still very much more than only the instructive, educational moments of the usual learning, which a small earthling just learns, in everyday life, from peers, parents, grandparents, neighbours and so on. So I also recognized that, in spite of my young age, I was a human being like every other human being, only that I could not yet fit into the ranks of adults, because many years of growing up still separated me from them. Therefore, because of this and other things, I longed to grow up quickly, indeed, in matters pertaining to the consciousness just as much as in matters pertaining to the body and age. But it quickly became clear to me that I could not turn the wheel of time in order for it to run faster. Consequently, I therefore consciously had to practice patience, which also caused me no difficulties. Well, it happened during a mild night in May, in the year 1941, and, if I remember rightly, it was around 3 am in the night of Sunday, May 4th. In any case, this is how it has all been etched into my memory, indeed, because everything, which took place at that time, was a special experience. I slept and dreamt that I saw my own body lying asleep in bed. Thinking about it in my sleep, I made the observation that I really was asleep, which somehow amazed me and moved me to wake up deliberately. A little drowsy, I looked out of the window, through which I saw the clear, starry sky. So I rose from my bed, went to the window and climbed out, as it was almost at ground level. Outside, I sat down on the simple bench, which stood against the wall of the house, and which father had built. I could not see the moon, however, the sky was clear and wrapped in velvety black, and millions of stars shone down from the firmament. For a few minutes, I sat there like that and looked up to the stars, while pondering and, in my thoughts, flying far into the universe. However, suddenly something peculiar happened inside of me, which, from the next moment, irrevocably changed my whole life. Strangely touched, I looked at my hands and body and could only vaguely recognize them. So I touched my body and felt it, and then I heard my own voice say my life is made out of the love of creation. and I could not explain why I said that and which power led me to speak these words. A slight shiver came over me, although the night was quite warm, and then I noticed that I also felt peculiar. Nevertheless, I was not frightened. Again, I looked up to the stars and recognized that the stars were distant suns in the vast outer space, and that these shone by means of their own power, by themselves, even though they were created from the light of the love of creation, as is everything in the whole universe. And again, words, the origins of which I could not decipher, the sense of which I was, however, able to grasp, as with the first words, escaped from my lips. Everything is created out of the light of love. And then further words followed. The space between the stars is empty and yet not empty, and everything that exists in the whole universe is a living one. Everything is creation and creation itself. The words which came from my own mouth penetrated deeply into me, and in them I recognized that the true source of life is the light of true creational love, which, in its vitality, creates all life and contains within itself all laws and recommendations of creational order and all information about life and death. I recognized that the light, which the stars emitted, was a light in the visible spectrum. However, the light of true love remained invisible, creational, and for all great time too. And, indeed, the beaming stars were there, which stirred in me an unfamiliar longing for the vast distance and faraway worlds. Then, words suddenly formed on my lips again, which said, since ancient times, you have lived among the stars, and suddenly I knew who I was, how I am, and what my mission is on this earth. And, suddenly, impulses came from somewhere, which I later recognized as impulses from the storage banks, and many good memories penetrated me and showed me the way I had to go in my life. Thus I also suddenly knew what space and time signified concerning the evolution of human beings and all things, and what the actual meaning of life is, in which the human being must create true love, peace, freedom, knowledge, harmony and wisdom. And the cognition was awakened, that no life or other things at all could exist in the universe, if the true being, the creation, did not direct everything with its love as well as its laws and recommendations. Thereby, as I recognized at that time, as a little boy, life becomes the power of creation, the highest might, which has created and maintains the universe and everything within it. This is everything of which I became aware during this night, as a little boy, who was just 4 years old. Everything which exists in the whole universe is a manifestation of the might and the infinite and true love of that mighty universal consciousness, which is simply called creation. And together with it, creation, everything that was created by it is creation, everything existing in the whole universe, everything which crawls and flies. However, true love, as well as the true love of creation itself, of which I became aware, is a form of incomprehensibly radiating light, of the Zaha-3, which permeates everything and allows all life and all existence to pulsate. Therefore, true love is light, which, in turn, perceives light and endlessly radiates further and never ends, but always keeps accumulating. And this love is also existent and recognizable in all matter, as well as in the human being, in whom it is present as a result of the creational spirit, and which he just has to let grow in him, internally and externally, whereby true love again reflects true love and creates harmony. This true love is the reality, and not, however, all the illusions and unreal dreams which the human being procures, which he can never realize, as they, exactly like smoke, only obscure his view and do not allow him to recognize what true love really is and what he himself is. In reality, within the universal drive mechanism of they only noticed that I became more and more modest and that I did not condemn anything or anyone and that I always gave what I could give. I became a human being who was no longer the same as the others, one who was still young in years and yet already old in his cognitions. I could understand fellow human beings very well, and, even to old people, I could give good advice for which they were very grateful. But nobody was in a position to understand me, except for Pastor Rudolf Zimmermann. Some thought I was a loner, others compared me to a sage, but nobody understood what actually went on inside me, what kind of thoughts and feelings I had, and what my real desire was, to be able to intelligibly transmit my cognitions and knowledge to other human beings. My thoughts led me to the cognition that, essentially, every human being should see himself in his fellow human beings as I saw myself in all other human beings, but nobody ever thinks to do this. Every human being lives only for himself and his own welfare, unless, out of some kind of feeling-based love or emotional love, or perhaps really out of true love, he forms a connection with someone else. Thus it became clear to me that I had to assume the responsibility of my task and dedicate my life to it, in order to give human beings understanding and to teach them that they dream up unreal things, and, indeed, without consciousness, and without comprehending what and who they really are, and to teach them for which purpose they eke out their life here on earth. Thus the human being has to learn to know himself, and not to hide behind fog and smoke, and not to believe that life can thereby be lived successfully and progressively. Hence, the saying shall be uttered, that it is very easy to go through life without perception and with closed eyes, and to disregard and misunderstand everything which, nevertheless, is seen out of the corner of one's eye. Only the human who life fulfills, who not in fog and smoke conceals, will happiness and victory one day obtain, and the true love of human beings gain. The end.